If you think that doctors aren't badass enough in real life, which you shouldn't by the way, think of the possibilities once anime logic gets thrown into the mix. I mean, it's to be expected for a profession that has so many ties to life and death to translate so well into anime. So today we're going to be going through some of the most badass doctors in anime. Now to change things up a little bit, we're not going to be counting down to 10 this time. Instead, we'll go through the characters one at a time. Before we get going, I noticed that a number of you still aren't subscribed to the channel. Hence, I'd like to invite you to hit that subscribe button before we get started. We start off this list with the bone-chilling Faust VIII. When I first said that doctors are one of the professions with the closest ties to life and death, I'm not sure if I expected to take this dark of a turn, but Shaman King's Faust exists, so we pretty much have to. Despite his influence over the dark arts and having such a sinister set of powers, Faust also has one of the most tragic backstories in Shaman King. Starting off the story as a doctor, Faust works double time in order to find a cure for his lover Eliza's illness. He succeeds, but fate just has its way of cruelly playing with us as Eliza ends up dying to a burglar, prompting Faust to turn to necromancy. Using his lover's skeletal remains, Faust joins the shaman fight in the hopes of finally reviving her for good. In battle, Faust overwhelms his opponents with legions of skeletons and the powerful reanimated form of Eliza. Scary stories of his feats quickly spread, but if there's a moment that establishes his strength in the Shaman King universe, it's when he actually becomes one of the first few people to win against the series protagonist, Yo Asakura. Let's take a slightly more light-hearted turn and take a look at the next doctor with a similar tragic backstory, Ishin Kurosaki. With how long Bleach has run its course, I won't blame you if you forgot that Ichigo's dad is actually a practicing doctor and that the Kurosakis live in a privately owned clinic. Said clinic is run by Ishin with his two daughters as nurse stand-ins. Just like Faust, Ishin's story is strongly tied to the death of a lover. This time it's his wife, who died to a hollow attack. It's one of the more important plot points in early Bleach that heavily affects not only Ishin, but also Ichigo, and I invite you to go and watch the mini arc as it's far better to experience it for yourself. However, instead of going from doctor to badass, brooding necromancer or anything like that, Ishin never needed to undergo such transformation. As Grand Fisher himself would soon find out, the lovable and goofy father is really playing butt monkey all along. Despite having evolved to a new form, Grand Fisher quickly falls to Ishin's blade. Well, when you see Ishin's far more impressive feats further down the line, you'll see that Grand Fisher really picked on the wrong Shinigami to mess with. Supernova Trafalgar Law can be categorized into an anti-hero. I mean, the nickname Surgeon of Death doesn't really seem like a pleasant good guy now, right? However, that doesn't mean that he's all badass and edge, despite his appearance giving all the flags of such a character. Law, for the majority of the Dressrosa and Four Emperors sagas, remains one of the most important allies that the Straw Hats have. In contrast to the previous two characters who just happen to be doctors, Law is the first character on our list to actually weaponize medical techniques. Not quite in the literal sense, as Law's devil fruit gives him the ability to perform miraculous surgeries, overcome physical disabilities, and cure diseases. What is that you say? Those are cool doctor abilities but aren't directly relevant to battle? I give you that, but the very same devil fruit also gives Law one of the most terrifying abilities in anime, spatial manipulation. First off, Law gets the ability of telekinesis and teleportation within his room. However, that's not even the most dreadful among the gifts given by the devil fruit. Wait till Law goes full surgeon mode and starts splitting things apart and throwing body parts all over the air. A very formidable ability indeed. The Straw Hats struck gold when they got Law as an ally, despite him not being too trustworthy. For all the criticisms that Kishimoto had in writing his female characters, we can at least agree that Tsunade is one of the most badass characters not just amongst the good guys, but among the Naruto cast as a whole. Famed as the greatest medic in the ninja world, the first ability that you'd likely notice from her, her super strength, may seem to be off tangent with her skill set. However, she pairs her fighting prowess with some of the most impressive medical techniques, leading breakthroughs such as crafting potions and mastering never-seen-before healing skills. Like a lot of the featured doctors before, Tsunade Tsunade also has to deal with loss at a young age. It caused her to abandon her life as a shinobi, but I think that it's those trials that also helped strengthen her resolve and make her strong enough to take over as Hokage. However, speaking of medics with physical prowess, the next doctor on the list takes it to the extreme, much like his peers in his show. In the wild, crazy world of Baki, anything is possible. With all the insane characters and fights going on, Super Doctor Kureha Shinogi looks very mundane in comparison. A genius doctor who's a master fighter in comparison to the other fighters is completely underwhelming. But don't let that be an excuse for you to underestimate Kureha Shinogi. The fact actually amazes me even more when it comes to evaluating Kureha. He's a fighter with no formal combat training, but thanks to his genius and knowledge on the human body, he's managed to turn his body into the apex of human perfection. It's this resourcefulness that makes him such a tough challenge for Baki to overcome. A genius with an unexpected arrogant streak, Kureha uses his medical knowledge masterfully in combat. It's his knowledge that allows him to precisely strike at Baki's weak points. He may not weaponize his medical knowledge as directly and wildly as Law can, but looking down on him, if it's even possible, it's the worst mistake that you can make. Always remember, in a series of battles where physical condition is king, it's the arrogant genius who has all the advantage in the world. After all, who better to know and evaluate a person's physical capabilities than one of the strongest doctors in the Bakiverse? We continue with the shonen series with Soul Eater's own Franken Stein. It's not surprising to find a doctor among the ranks of the DWMA. When I first watched Soul Eater, one of the DWMA characters that really interested me was Dr. Franken Stein, better known as just Stein. I'm not sure if it was his cool appearance, the heroic mad scientist vibes, or just the general aura of badassness that I can see from him that makes him such an interesting character. If you need further proof of how badass of a Dr. Stein is, look no further from Death, who recognizes him as the strongest Meister to have graduated from DWMA. It's quite surprising though, because honestly speaking, Stein's fighting style with a weapon is boring. He just blocks and counters all day, but is sure effective as hell. Stein is one of the most unpredictable characters in the show, capable of suddenly switching allegiances on a whim it seems. However, talking more about it would be spoiling, so why don't you watch Soul Eater yourself and keep your eyes locked on this wild card of a character. On an interesting note, doesn't Stein's scars and skin grafts remind you of another anime doctor? Now who could that be?
つまりこの俺自身が繋がった実例ってわけだ。可能性も考えず軽々しく繋げられないという意志は我慢ならないんでね。
If you answered Dr. Blackjack in the previous question, you got it right. How can we have a countdown featuring anime doctors without featuring one of the most iconic ones in all of anime? If you're someone like me who grew up in the 2000s and had regular access to the anime community, surely you would have encountered Dr. Blackjack in some form or another. In fact, I dare say that Blackjack was, at some point, synonymous to the term anime doctor. Boy, does he deserve it. As a combo breaker, Blackjack's the first character in this countdown to not actually do a lot of fighting. That doesn't make him any less badass and cool. You don't need to have magical powers to be a hero, and despite the outwardly jerk-ass persona that this doctor likes putting on, he has one big heart of gold underneath everything. I mean, when you get exposed to so many human flaws like he does, it's not hard to turn sour towards the world. Despite everything, he performs his job flawlessly, earning him the much-deserved nickname, the Surgeon with Hands of God. What Blackjack doesn't combo break, however, is the recurring theme of tragic pasts. We're 4 out of 7 with that right now, and for Blackjack, you can just let his facial features and the scars on his face tell the story. As for more details on that, you should read the manga or watch the anime to find out, because these plot points are buried quite deep into the series.
命を奪うのは俺の仕事だ。お前にはできない。
We finish off the list with, for me, the most badass anime doctor of them all. Monster's Kenzo Tenma. Anyone here watched Monster? If you haven't, you gotta go and check it out. And this final featured character is a big reason why. For me, I place Kenzo Tenma as the most badass doctor of them all, because quite frankly, it takes more balls to go after a deranged killer and numerous criminals as an ordinary doctor. No powers, no magical swords, no super regeneration, nothing of the sort, yet you go after some of the most dangerous people the world has to offer. I think the what makes Monster so good as an anime is the fact that you go through a long journey to see the evolution of a troubled and torn man. Kenzo Tenma is pretty much the definition of the all-loving hero that represents idealism. However, several choices have him go through the long road of developing into one of the more unexpectedly driven and tough characters in the show. You can see it with how his appearance slowly changes to becoming more and more disheveled as the series goes on. Nothing, whether the corruption in the world around him or physical threats from people, would make his pure heart of steel falter. And that, my friends, is the mark of a true badass. And that's why I place Kenzo Tenma as the best among the best in this list. As we wrap up this list, let me know if I've missed out on any characters you'd like to see on the list. So leave your shoutouts on the comment section below. That's it for today. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for more lists coming your way. I'll see you next time on ViniiTube.